For a closer look at China, I had time to visit with James Fallows. He's a national correspondent for the Atlantic magazine. He's also spent considerable time in China. He's also a former White House speechwriter for President Carter. I asked him how he would define the Chinese dream.
I think the Chinese dream, there's a national level Chinese dream, which is partially, although not fully realized, which is essentially the reassertion of China's pride, its prosperity, of reversing this longtime narrative of victimhood and not being able to succeed on the world stage. I think there's been a long progress towards that, not complete, but very significant. I think the probably more urgent Chinese dream is the accumulation of 1 billion individual Chinese dreams of people who want to be sure their children will have better job prospects, better education, better natural environment. So I think it's in a way like the America of maybe the 50s or 60s, where a sense of people have come so far in their own family narratives, wanting to be sure that will be continued for their children.
I love how you say you're given that pass when you started a publication where you can write the story about, here's what I'm wondering about China. So you wrote that, but if you were to write the story now, here's what I know about China, what would you write that maybe the Western world's not aware of?
So this is the back of my mind question all the time when I'm trying to address mainly a Western audience about China. I think that some of the surprises for people who've read only about China and haven't been there themselves, until 2 or 3 years ago, the surprise would be that China is actually a more sort of tentative and incomplete success than most people would think. At the time of the Beijing Olympics and the year or two after that, there was the sense in the Western world that China could just dominate any single field in which it turned its attention to. I think now there have been some realization in the rest of the world, as in China, that it still is largely a poor country, still with lots of domestic problems to address, still a per capita income that's only a small fraction of that in Western Europe or North America, so still has these challenges ahead. The main thing I think I'd like to convey to Western viewers and readers now, which I think your programs do, is how this seems like one big unified country, but it really is 1 billion people who very vividly are having their own individual business plans, their own individual views of the world, their own sense of what they'd like to do themselves to enrich their lives, their own sense of where they'd like the children to be. And so there is a kind of, often there's a picture in the Western world of China as some big mass stadium with thousands of people all working in unison. The image I have instead is one of these paintings, say, by Bruegel, the Dutch painter, where there's a whole crowd of people all doing their own individual things. So I think the individual intensity, variety, color, and humanness is what would be surprising about China to people who haven't been there themselves.
I've got one final question, and it relates to the same sort of kind of narrative, in that a lot of people tend to look at China through almost Western glasses, in a sense. I've talked to a lot of people there like, well, she should be doing this. And then I spoke to an analyst recently who said, you know, the problem in the United States is people look at it as he's President Obama. They don't look at it as there's 9 members of a Politburo. It's like the Supreme Court, in a sense. You might get a 5-4 ruling or whatever. You've got to build consensus. Is that one of the problems, too?
Sure. I think that there's been the long narrative. You know, during some of China's modern history, there have been times where one leader could just say that something should happen, and it would. During much of Chairman Mao's time, that was the case. But in modern Chinese governance, I think Westerners underappreciate the challenges that even somebody who's the president of China and the chairman of the party has in getting what he wants done. You know, Beijing is one place, and all the provinces are different, and the villages are different, and the individuals are different too. So in certain ways, it's easier for the Chinese central government to say, go in this direction, the country will. But in many others, the power of a leader in China is less than that of a prime minister in England or a president of the United States. So I think appreciating the tentative control that a Chinese leader has over this country of 1 billion people, I think that also is underappreciated in the West.
Jim Fallows, a delight. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thank you very much.